Have you ever noticed, dear soul, how sometimes the very people who seem to resist you, the ones who carry within them a spirit of rebellion, of contradiction, or even darkness, are the ones who cannot take their eyes off you? They are drawn to you, though not always in ways that make sense. They may oppose you, they may test you, they may even try to harm you. But at the same time, something within them clings to your presence. It is as though their inner turmoil cannot help but be magnetized by your peace. This, beloved, is not by accident. This is one of the mysterious experiences of God's chosen ones. You carry a light that unsettles the dark, a patience that silences pride, and a spirit that does not bend to manipulation. For someone walking in the grip of deception, this is not just unusual, it is disarming. They are not used to such strength combined with gentleness. They are not used to someone who sees through their masks, yet does not crumble before their intimidation. And so the paradox unfolds. The devil, in human form or influence, can grow fascinated with you. Sometimes it looks like admiration, sometimes it looks like obsession, at times it appears as hostility. But beneath it all, it is a recognition that you are not like the rest. The truth is, nobody has handled them the way you have. You do not flatter them, you do not fear them, you do not feed their ego. Instead, you stand in stillness, and in that stillness, you reveal their chaos. You show them the futility of their games. You show them what true authority looks like, not loud, not boastful, but steady, rooted in God. This is why you, chosen one, often find yourself in strange, almost surreal relationships with people who operate from the shadows. They push, and yet they cannot let go. They tease, and yet they secretly respect. Their soul may even resist you, but something deeper within them cannot help but acknowledge what you carry. There is a profound spiritual principle at work here. The kingdom of darkness cannot help but recognize the mark of God. Just as demons recognized Jesus and cried out, "We know who you are, the Holy One of God," so too do troubled spirits recognize the anointing upon you. They may not confess it openly, they may never say it aloud, but their actions, their fascination, and their inability to move on reveal the truth. And so today, let us explore this mystery together. Let us slow down and reflect on why this happens, what it means for your walk, and how you can remain steady in such encounters. For this is not a coincidence. This is not merely psychology. This is spiritual. And if you understand it, you will not be shaken by it. Instead, you will move with wisdom, compassion, and discernment. So, breathe deeply. Allow your heart to be still as we walk step by step through this truth. Point 1. The light exposes what darkness tries to hide. The first reason they are drawn to you, chosen one, is because your very presence exposes what others work tirelessly to keep hidden. Think of it like walking into a room where someone has dimmed the lights, carefully arranging everything so no flaws can be seen. Then you arrive, and without even trying, you are that single candle lit in the corner. Suddenly, the shadows don't seem so secure anymore, and what was once concealed is revealed in plain sight. You don't even have to call it out. You don't have to name what you see. Your spirit naturally makes people's true colors visible. This is not just a poetic metaphor. Psychology even tells us that people unconsciously adjust their behavior depending on who they are around. When they stand before someone authentic, honest, and spiritually aligned, their pretenses begin to crack because they can't maintain the same performance. That is what you do. You create an atmosphere where masks fall off. It can be unsettling for people who live behind those masks. Imagine someone who has spent years perfecting an image, rehearsing every smile, every carefully chosen word, all to give the impression of being stronger, kinder, or more righteous than they really are. The moment you step into their life without judgment, without even addressing their act, the cracks in their disguise begin to show. This is why some people feel uneasy around you, even if you've never done anything to them. They feel seen in ways they weren't ready to be seen. You remind them of the truth they are running from, and truth has a way of burning the eyes when you've been living in darkness for too long. Spiritually speaking, this ability is not something you developed by accident. Many chosen ones carry what ancient traditions call a seer's light. In biblical terms, it's the same gift described as discernment. the ability to sense the hidden intentions of the heart. In energy studies, it's linked to heightened intuition and vibrational awareness. Science itself acknowledges that some people are more perceptive to micro-expressions and subtle shifts in body language, meaning you can read the room before a word is spoken. But while most people may notice small things here and there, you connect those pieces instantly, almost effortlessly, because your spirit was built to detect what isn't said. It's like you've got an inner radar that doesn't just catch lies, it detects spiritual dissonance. Now, here's where it becomes fascinating. People are both repelled and attracted to this quality in you. On one hand, those who cling tightly to their false identities feel exposed, uncomfortable, and even defensive in your presence. It's not because you are harsh, but because you remind them of the truth they avoid. On the other hand, those who secretly crave freedom from their own masks are magnetized to you. They may not even understand why, but being around you gives them permission to breathe a little deeper, drop their guard a little more, and embrace authenticity. You become a mirror that reflects not only who they really are, but also who they could be if they dared to live without fear. This is why you may notice people confessing things to you out of nowhere, telling you secrets they've held for years, or suddenly admitting truths they swore they'd never share. It's not a coincidence. It's because your presence activates honesty. It's as if your energy demands transparency, not through force, but through the silent weight of authenticity. People can lie to the world, but they cannot lie comfortably around you. That is a heavy yet powerful gift, one that marks you as different. So, when you wonder why certain people either avoid you or become strangely fascinated by you, remember this. You are the candle in their carefully constructed darkness. Some will curse the light because it disrupts the illusions they cling to. Others will be grateful because it gives them the courage to step out of hiding. Either way, your presence reveals what they've been trying to keep concealed. And that, chosen one, is one of the undeniable signs of who you truly are. Point 2. Authority without aggression. Unlike most, you do not need to shout or argue to stand firm. This calm, unshakable authority unsettles them because it cannot be manipulated or provoked. Chosen ones carry a unique energy, an inner balance that radiates quiet strength. While others might rely on force, volume, or intimidation to make themselves heard, you embody a different power, the ability to stand your ground without losing your peace. This is not weakness, it is mastery. History and psychology both reveal that the most influential people are not always the loudest, but often the ones who can maintain composure when chaos surrounds them. This is why your presence alone often disrupts the plans of those who seek control, because you refuse to feed into the energy of conflict. Think about it. When someone is trying to push your buttons, they expect a reaction. They expect anger, defensiveness, or retaliation. That's how manipulation works. It thrives on emotional entanglement. But when you remain calm, when your voice stays steady and your spirit unshaken, it denies them that satisfaction. Studies in emotional intelligence confirm that those who regulate their emotions effectively hold more influence in social dynamics. Your silence, your pause before responding, and your refusal to let anger dictate your actions, these are not just habits, they are spiritual weapons. The world often misunderstands this restraint, mistaking it for passivity, but in truth it is one of the greatest displays of power. Chosen ones throughout history have embodied this principle. Spiritual teachers, prophets, and leaders were often attacked, mocked, and challenged in public, yet their responses carried wisdom instead of rage. They didn't shout to prove themselves, they let truth speak through their calmness. The calmness you carry is not ordinary. It is rooted in a higher connection, a spiritual grounding that others cannot comprehend. That is why people who operate in manipulation, ego, and deceit feel exposed around you. Your steadiness is a mirror revealing their instability. Your refusal to argue leaves them wrestling with their own noise. There is also a scientific reality behind this. When you remain calm in conflict, your parasympathetic nervous system, often called the rest and digest system, stays activated. This means your body avoids going into full fight-or-flight mode, keeping your mind clear and your decisions sharp. Meanwhile, the person trying to provoke you is often caught in their stress response, clouded by adrenaline and impulsive thinking. In simple terms, your calmness allows you to think while they are only reacting. This is why, in the end, your authority wins without you raising your voice. But here's the deeper truth. Your calm spirit does not come from mere self-control. It comes from divine alignment. Chosen ones understand that their identity and value are not defined by external noise. You don't need to defend your worth to anyone because your worth is already established by something greater than this world. This is why your authority feels unshakable. It doesn't depend on circumstances, opinions, or approval. That inner knowing radiates, and others sense it even if they can't explain it. It's the kind of presence that can silence a room without a single word. This unsettles people because they can't manipulate what they can't move. They can't provoke someone who refuses to play their game. And so, your calmness becomes a shield. Your silence becomes strategy, and your very presence becomes a lesson. It teaches others that true strength is not found in the loudest roar, but in the unwavering stillness that refuses to bow to chaos. And that, chosen one, is why you unsettle the world without even trying. Point 3. Love they cannot corrupt. Chosen one, let's break down something that most people misunderstand about you, your compassion. See, the world often confuses compassion with weakness. It paints this picture that to be compassionate means to be soft, gullible, and easy to manipulate. But in your case, compassion is not naive. It is sharp, it is conscious, and it is powerful. You love without being entangled, and that is exactly why so many people don't know how to handle you. Most relationships, whether in families, friendships, or romance, are built on subtle contracts of control. People use affection, approval, or even fear to keep others in line. But when you show love without attaching strings, you essentially take away their weapons. They can't guilt-trip you, they can't lure you into emotional traps, and they can't bend you to their will. That frustrates them because you're rewriting the very script they've been trained to live by. Psychologists have studied something called compassionate detachment, and it's exactly what you embody. Unlike codependency, which drains people and ties their identity to someone else's happiness, compassionate detachment means you can genuinely care, support, and empathize without losing yourself in another person's storm. This isn't coldness, it's clarity. Think of it like a lighthouse. The lighthouse doesn't jump into the waves to save the ship. It shines steadily, guiding without drowning. That's you. You radiate compassion, but you're anchored in your own being. What makes this so unique is that most people don't even believe it's possible. Society conditions us to think love must always come with sacrifice. If you love someone, you must prove it by suffering with them, by constantly giving in, by losing yourself for their comfort. But chosen ones live by a different law. Your compassion comes from a higher awareness, almost spiritual in nature. It's what ancient teachers meant when they spoke of loving your neighbor as yourself. Notice the balance. It's not just loving your neighbor endlessly, it's also loving yourself. And that balance is what keeps you untangled. Here's the irony. The very people who get frustrated with your love are the ones who desperately need it. They're addicted to control because fear runs their lives. Fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of losing their grip. When you refuse to play into that, you expose their fear. That's why your presence feels both healing and unsettling. You give them a taste of unconditional love, but you also show them that they can't own it, can't manipulate it, and can't package it. And for someone who thrives on control, that is terrifying. History gives us countless examples of this type of compassion. Think of figures like Gandhi or Mother Teresa, people who were compassionate but not passive. Their compassion wasn't about pleasing others. It was about standing in truth, refusing to be moved by threats, bribes, or manipulation. They could serve and uplift without becoming pawns. In the same way, chosen ones carry a quiet strength in their love. You may not be leading revolutions on a global scale, but in your family, your workplace, or your circle, You're disrupting unhealthy patterns simply by refusing to be entangled. And let's not forget, there's humor in this too, because sometimes the people trying to control you will throw the wildest tantrums. They'll say things like, "If you really loved me, you would." And you just smile, because you see the strings they're trying to attach. You can care deeply and still say no. You can listen with empathy and still walk away if it's toxic. That balance, that clarity, is what makes your compassion so rare and so threatening to systems built on control. So, chosen one, never doubt this gift. Your compassion is not weakness, it's spiritual intelligence. It's a rare combination of heart and wisdom, of empathy and boundaries. You love with open hands, not clenched fists, and that is why your love is pure. Keep shining like that lighthouse, because those who are ready will be guided, and those who try to manipulate will simply crash against the rocks of their own control. Either way, your compassion remains unshaken. That is your quiet, unstoppable power. Point 4. Recognition of the spirit in you. Even if they resist admitting it, they recognize something divine within you. This is not imagination, nor is it arrogance. It is a spiritual truth that has been whispered through centuries, across cultures, and even through scripture. The spirit within them knows the spirit within you. It is the silent recognition of light meeting light, even if their conscious mind denies it. This recognition does not always come with celebration. Sometimes it brings attraction, a sense of being drawn toward you without knowing why. At other times it brings resistance, conflict, and even envy, because what is inside of you reveals what is missing inside of them. Throughout history, those marked as chosen or spiritually awakened have carried this mysterious magnetism. Ancient teachers, prophets, mystics, and enlightened souls were often both loved and hated, admired and rejected. Their very presence carried a vibration that disrupted the ordinary. People sensed in them something more, an invisible authority, a sacred energy that could not be fabricated or faked. Even today, when you walk into a room, there are individuals who feel unsettled around you. It is not because you did anything wrong. It is because your presence forces them to confront themselves. The higher frequency of your spirit stirs what is dormant in theirs, and that can be uncomfortable. Science, too, has begun to scratch the surface of this invisible exchange. Studies in quantum physics and biology suggest that human beings emit measurable electromagnetic fields from their hearts and brains. The HeartMath Institute, for instance, has documented that the heart's electromagnetic field can be detected several feet away from the body, influencing those around us. When someone is in alignment with peace, truth, or divine consciousness, their energy radiates stronger, calmer, and clearer. Those who encounter it may not have words for what they feel, but their spirit knows. They feel the calm or the discomfort, the pull or the push, because something deeper than flesh is communicating. What makes this so fascinating is that you do not have to announce who you are. The chosen ones rarely do. You don't walk around with a label on your forehead saying, "I am divine." Yet the atmosphere changes when you step in. Think of it like a tuning fork. When struck, it causes nearby objects to vibrate in resonance. Your spirit is that tuning fork. When it meets another spirit, it creates resonance if they are open, or dissonance if they are closed. That's why some people feel safe and inspired around you, while others suddenly become defensive, competitive, or even hostile. It has little to do with your actions and everything to do with your presence. This is why the chosen ones often experience misunderstanding. People can't always explain why they love you, and they certainly can't explain why they dislike you, but both reactions stem from the same source. Your spirit speaks louder than your words. And because the spirit world transcends the visible, people sometimes fight against what they sense in you, denying it while still being affected by it. This is where the paradox lies. They resist you, yet they cannot ignore you. They criticize you, yet they watch you closely. They may even distance themselves, but they keep your name in their mouths. Understanding this truth brings a sense of peace. It teaches you that the attraction and the conflict are not about your personality, but about your spirit. You are a living reminder of something sacred, something eternal, something they may have forgotten or buried. And while that recognition can create friction, it also plants seeds. Even resistance can awaken curiosity. Even conflict can stir reflection. And even denial cannot erase what their spirit already knows. There is something divine in you, something unshakable, something eternal, something they can't quite put into words but can never truly escape. Point 5. Silence that speaks louder than words. Your silence is powerful, chosen one, not the kind of silence that feels like absence, but the kind that vibrates with presence. It is not weakness, avoidance, or passivity. It is a force, an energy, a divine tool. When you choose silence, you are not withholding. You are commanding. In a noisy world where everyone scrambles to fill space with words, arguments, and defenses, your quiet unsettles people because it unmasks them. Suddenly, without the distraction of your voice, they are confronted with their own inner noise. Your silence works like a mirror, forcing them to hear the echoes of their own insecurity and emptiness, and that reflection is often far louder than any response you could give. Spiritual traditions across time recognize this truth. The prophets retreated to mountains and deserts, mystics sought solitude, and monks embraced vows of silence, not because they had nothing to say, but because silence is the birthplace of divine wisdom. Even in the Bible, we are told in 1 Kings 19:12 that God did not come in the earthquake or the fire, but in the gentle whisper. Modern science echoes this ancient knowing. Studies reveal that silence encourages growth in the hippocampus, the part of the brain linked to memory, emotion, and clarity. In other words, while the world equates silence with nothingness, in reality, silence is creation itself. It builds, it sharpens, and it awakens. What rattles people most is that your silence refuses to play by their rules. They expect confrontation, an exchange of blows, a war of words. But when you stand still, unbothered, unreactive, you expose the futility of their chaos. It's like trying to fight the ocean. They can splash, scream, and thrash about, but the ocean does not argue. It simply is, and in that isness lies authority. Chosen one, your silence declares a truth that cannot be shouted down. Your worth is not up for debate. This is why your silence is more than a personal habit. It's a spiritual strategy. It protects your energy, reveals truth without effort, and allows others to expose themselves without you lifting a finger. People may call you cold, detached, or mysterious, but those labels are just confessions of their discomfort. What they really mean is, your stillness forces me to confront myself. And that is precisely why this gift was placed in you. Not to win petty arguments, but to keep your spirit free for your mission. In relationships, in conflicts, and even in moments of temptation, your silence becomes a language of its own. It speaks of boundaries without hostility, dignity without pride, and wisdom without preaching. It reminds the world that not every storm deserves your presence. The true beauty is that while your silence disarms others, it also transforms you. In stillness, you draw closer to God, your intuition sharpens, and your soul receives downloads that noise could never deliver. So remember this, chosen one. Silence is not emptiness, it is fullness, full of wisdom, presence, and power. When the world shouts, let your quiet roar. Point 6. A discipline they cannot match. They are captivated by how you live. Not because you flaunt it, but because your way of being defies the ordinary rhythm of this world. Your restraint, your focus, and your refusal to drown in the noise of endless temptation feel like a living paradox. In a society where excess is celebrated and indulgence is marketed as happiness, your quiet discipline stands out like a beacon. To many, the idea of living without constantly chasing pleasure, status, or validation seems almost impossible. Yet when they look at you, they see that it's not only possible, but powerful. This contrast unsettles them, fascinates them, and in many ways inspires them, because you embody a truth most people secretly know but rarely practice. The treasures worth pursuing are not material, not temporary, and certainly not corruptible. Modern culture thrives on stimulation. Social media, advertising, and entertainment industries are built on the premise that people must always want more followers, more possessions, and more experiences. Psychologists describe this as the hedonic treadmill, where individuals adapt quickly to new gains and soon crave something bigger or better. The cycle never ends, leaving people perpetually dissatisfied. But when you step off that treadmill, when you reject the endless chase, you become an anomaly. Your peace becomes noticeable, your stillness unsettling. Others see in you a person who is not enslaved by trends or cravings, and that makes them wonder what secret you carry. This sense of mystery isn't accidental. Studies in social psychology confirm that human beings are naturally drawn to people who carry an aura of self-mastery. Restraint, unlike indulgence, signals strength. When someone demonstrates the ability to say no, whether to a destructive habit, an unhealthy relationship, or even a fleeting temptation, it sends a message of depth and control. People may not articulate it this way, but instinctively they sense that such discipline is rare and valuable. In your case, however, it's more than willpower. It is in alignment with divine order. Every distraction avoided isn't a sacrifice, but an investment. Every temptation resisted isn't deprivation, but preservation of your spiritual energy. Science supports this as well. One of the most famous psychological studies, the Stanford marshmallow experiment, revealed how children who resisted eating one marshmallow immediately, in exchange for two later, tended to perform better in life decades afterward. They displayed higher academic achievement, healthier relationships, and greater success in their careers. Why? Because delayed gratification builds endurance, patience, and focus, qualities that compound over time. For the chosen ones, however, the stakes are even higher. The goal isn't just worldly success. The treasures you pursue are eternal. Every act of discipline becomes a seed sown in the spiritual realm, destined to bear fruit in ways the world cannot measure or comprehend. This is why your focus becomes magnetic. While most people scatter their attention across countless distractions, you concentrate yours like a laser. You are not untouched by temptation. You are human after all. But you refuse to let temptation rule you. This quiet defiance unsettles people in the best way. It forces them to reflect, to question their own choices, and to wonder what it might feel like to live with such clarity. They may not admit it aloud, but deep within they whisper, "What gives this person such strength?" The answer, though profound in its simplicity, is this: you are fueled by something eternal, something the world cannot offer, and something the world cannot take away. Sociologists often argue that every society needs its countercultural voices, individuals or groups who resist the mainstream in order to reveal its flaws. In the early Christian world, believers who rejected Roman excess and lived with radical simplicity often drew curiosity, criticism, and admiration. Their refusal to indulge in the empire's vices became a testimony not only of faith, but of inner freedom. The same principle lives on in the chosen ones. By living differently, not to boast, but to honor the divine, you become a mirror in which others see their own restless striving. Some may admire you, others may resent you, but none can ignore you. This magnetic presence does not come from possessions, titles, or images. It comes from the quiet fire of a soul that refuses to bend under the weight of cultural pressure. When you stand firm in restraint amidst excess, when you remain centered in chaos, when you walk with focus while the world celebrates distraction, you become a living paradox, and paradox always captivates. People are drawn not because they understand, but because they want to. You represent a possibility they secretly crave, that peace is possible, that meaning is real, and that joy is not dependent on endless consumption. And so yes, they are captivated by you. They may not always say it, and some may even disguise their fascination with skepticism or criticism, but deep down, they recognize the light you carry. It is the light of discipline in a world of indulgence, the light of clarity in a world of confusion, and the light of eternity in a world obsessed with the temporary. Without seeking it, your presence becomes a testimony. Without forcing it, your way of life becomes a sermon. And without flaunting it, your very existence shines as a reminder that there is another way to live, one marked not by fleeting pleasures, but by eternal purpose. That is what sets you apart as chosen, not perfection, not superiority, but the daily, intentional choice to honor what is unseen over what is seen, to live for what endures rather than what fades. Point 7. The unspoken testimony of God's mark. Chosen one. Here's the truth that often goes unnoticed. When people, situations, and even complete strangers are drawn to you, it isn't merely about your personality, your appearance, or your charm. What they are really sensing is something far deeper, something spiritual. It is not you they are chasing. It is the divine imprint of God's presence within you. Scripture affirms this mystery in Colossians 1:27, which declares, "Christ in you, the hope of glory." This divine presence is a spiritual power that cannot be hidden. Just as iron cannot resist the pull of a magnet, the souls and spirits of this world, whether they recognize it or not, are naturally drawn toward the authority and light of Christ that rests upon you. This mark of God is invisible to the physical eye, but undeniable in the spiritual realm. Some people may feel a deep sense of peace when they are near you, even if they cannot explain it. Others may feel restless, exposed, or even hostile, because the light you carry reveals what they prefer to keep hidden. Both reactions, comfort or conflict, are proof of the same reality. You are carrying something beyond the ordinary. Throughout history, this has always been the case with God's chosen ones. Prophets, apostles, and spiritual leaders were rarely pursued for themselves, but for the divine authority flowing through them. Consider Peter in Acts 5, where people laid the sick in the streets, hoping his shadow would pass over them. It wasn't Peter's shadow that carried healing. It was the presence of Christ within him, radiating outward. To be chosen is to live with this unseen magnetism, a spiritual gravity that draws both favor and resistance. It is not always comfortable, but it is always purposeful. You do not walk in your own strength or your own name. You walk sealed with God's authority, and that seal carries weight in the unseen world. That is why doors sometimes open unexpectedly, why opposition suddenly rises, and why atmospheres shift when you walk into a room. What surrounds you is not ordinary influence. It is God's presence working through you. From a psychological perspective, people are often drawn to those who carry peace, confidence, and authenticity. Studies in social psychology reveal that humans gravitate toward individuals who project calmness, self-assurance, and groundedness. Yet for the chosen, this isn't just psychology. It is spirituality manifesting. People may describe you as different or refreshing, not realizing that what they sense is God's Spirit radiating outward. Even those who oppose you may find themselves strangely fixated on your presence because light demands a response. It cannot be ignored. So, chosen one, when you notice that people walking in darkness seem obsessed with you, do not be afraid. When both admiration and resistance follow you, do not think it strange. It is not about your natural qualities. It is about the one who walks with you. You are carrying something eternal, something sacred, the very presence of God. And that presence commands attention, whether in silence, in resistance, or in awe. Therefore, walk gently but firmly. Do not be lured into pride when people are drawn to you, and do not be shaken when hostility arises against you. Instead, remain rooted in humility, knowing that it is God's Spirit, not human strength, that marks you as chosen. Stand as you are, anointed, set apart, and sealed. In your stillness and faithfulness, you will continue to reveal truth, even to those who never expected to be disarmed by the light you carry. And in time, they will see that it was never simply you. It was always Christ in you, the hope of glory.